The woman's eyes opened to nothing but white-hot pain and a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Her mind an empty slate except for the pounding in her skull and the taste of copper on her tongue. She tried to sit up, but her body protested with 1,000 aches. Sand clung to her skin, her torn dress, her matted hair. Where was she? Who was she? The questions echoed in the hollow space where her memories should have been, finding no answers. Panic rose in her chest like a wild horse, bucking and kicking against her ribs. She forced herself to breathe, to focus on something other than the terrifying void inside her head. The landscape around her stretched endlessly in shades of brown and gold. Texas, maybe, or New Mexico. She somehow knew what those places were, even if she could not recall her own name. Rocks jutted up from the earth like broken teeth, and in the distance, mountains rose against that merciless blue sky. The sun beat down without mercy, and she realized with growing alarm that she had no water, no supplies, no idea which direction to walk. Her hands shook as she touched her face, her arms trying to find some clue to her identity. No rings, no jewelry, nothing. The dress she wore had once been fine, she could tell that much, but it was torn and stained beyond recognition. Had she been in an accident? Attacked? Left for dead? She stood on unsteady legs, swaying like a newborn foal. Every direction looked the same. She chose one at random and began to walk, knowing that staying still meant death under the 1885 Texas sun. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange and elastic. Her throat burned with thirst. Her vision blurred at the edges. She stumbled over rocks she could not see clearly anymore, fell to her knees more than once. Each time it got harder to rise. The sound of hoofbeats might have been a hallucination. She was past caring. But then a shadow fell across her, blessedly cool, and a voice spoke words that seemed to come from very far away. "Madam, madam, can you hear me?" She tried to answer, but her lips were too cracked, her throat too dry. Strong hands lifted her, and she felt herself being positioned across a saddle. Water touched her lips, and she drank greedily until the canteen was pulled away. "Easy now. Too much at once will make you sick." The world swam and tilted. She gave up trying to make sense of it and let the darkness take her. When she woke again, she was lying on something soft. A bed. The room around her was simple but clean, with whitewashed walls and plain wooden furniture. Sunlight streamed through a window, painting golden squares on the floor. She turned her head and saw a man sitting in a chair nearby, his hat resting on his knee. He was probably in his mid-20s, with sun-darkened skin and dark brown hair that needed a trim. His face was all hard angles, the kind of face earned through years of outdoor work, but his eyes were kind when they met hers. Those eyes were a striking hazel, green and gold mixed together. "You are awake," he said, his voice carrying a slight relief. "Had me worried there for a while." She tried to speak, had to clear her throat twice before words would come. "Where am I?" "My ranch, about 5 miles outside Fort Davis, Texas. Found you out in the desert yesterday afternoon. You were in bad shape." He stood, moving to pour water from a pitcher into a cup. "Name is Carter Garrett. Most folks just call me Carter." He helped her sit up and handed her the cup. She drank slowly this time, savoring every drop. When she was done, he took the cup back and studied her face with concern. "What is your name, madam?" The question hung in the air between them. She opened her mouth to answer and felt her heart drop into her stomach. "I do not know." His eyebrows rose. "You do not know?" "I cannot remember anything." The panic was back, crawling up her throat. "I do not know who I am, where I came from, why I was out there. It is all just empty." Carter sat back down, his expression thoughtful. "You took a pretty hard knock to the head. There is a nasty bruise on your temple. Doc Miller came by last night to check on you. He said memory loss was possible with a head injury like that. She reached up and touched the side of her head, wincing at the tender spot she found there. Will it come back? Doc said it might. Or it might not. There is no way to know for sure. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Do you remember anything at all? Even just a feeling or an image? She closed her eyes and tried to reach into that empty space, searching for even the smallest fragment. No, nothing. It is like I started existing the moment I opened my eyes in the desert. Well, Carter said after a moment, you are safe here for now. You can stay until you are healed up and we figure out what to do next. Why would you help me? You do not know who I am. I could be anyone. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Could be. But I do not make a habit of leaving injured women to die in the desert. My mama raised me better than that. Despite everything, she felt a faint answering smile on her own lips. Thank you. I do not know how I will repay you. We will worry about that later. Right now, you need to rest and get your strength back. He stood and moved toward the door. I will bring you some food, nothing too heavy, just some broth and bread to start. Wait, she called out, and he paused in the doorway. What should I call myself? I cannot just be the woman with no name. Carter considered this, his gaze thoughtful. What feels right to you? She thought about it, rolling different names around in her mind like stones, testing their weight. Penelope, she said finally. I do not know why, but that feels right. Penelope it is then. He nodded as if this were settled. Penelope what, though? You will need a last name too. Pierce, she said without hesitation. The name came from somewhere, though she could not say where. Maybe it was her real name, or maybe her mind was just grasping at straws. Either way, it would do. Penelope Pierce. Carter tested the name, then nodded again. I will be back in a bit, Miss Pierce. He left her alone with her thoughts, which was both a blessing and a curse. She looked around the room more carefully, trying to understand where she had landed. The furniture was handmade, but well crafted. Everything was neat and orderly. This was not the home of a wealthy man, but it was the home of a man who took care of what he had. True to his word, Carter returned within the hour, carrying a tray with a bowl of steaming broth, fresh bread, and more water. He helped her sit up properly, propping pillows behind her back. Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon to her lips, but the broth was good, rich with the flavor of beef and vegetables. She had not realized how hungry she was until she started eating. Slow down, Carter cautioned with a gentle smile. Your stomach needs time to adjust. She forced herself to eat more slowly, though everything in her wanted to devour the meal. You live here alone? Mostly. Got a couple of ranch hands who come by during the day to help with the cattle and horses. But yeah, it is just me in the house. He pulled the chair closer to the bed. Been that way for about 3 years now, since my father passed. I am sorry, she said automatically, and was surprised to realize she meant it. It was his time. He lived a good life. Carter's expression grew distant. He built this place up from nothing. Came out here in '68 and staked his claim. Worked himself to the bone to make it something real. And now it is yours, Penelope said. For better or worse? He smiled, but there was something sad in it. It is a lot of work for one man, but I cannot imagine doing anything else. She finished the broth and took another piece of bread, eating it slowly. What will happen to me? Carter was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking through the possibilities. Well, first you need to heal. That is going to take a week or two at least. Meanwhile, I will ride into Fort Davis and see if anyone knows anything about a missing woman. Maybe someone reported you gone, or there was an accident we do not know about yet. And if no one knows anything, then we will figure something else out. His voice was steady, reassuring. One step at a time, Miss Pierce. The days that followed fell into a strange routine. Penelope was stronger than she looked, and by the third day she was up and moving around the house. Carter had insisted she take his bedroom while she recovered, and he had moved himself to a small room off the kitchen that he said used to be a storage space. She protested this arrangement, but he would not hear otherwise. The ranch house was larger than she had first thought, with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a parlor, and a small office where Carter kept his books and accounts. Everything was clean but clearly lacked a woman's touch. She found herself wanting to arrange things differently, to add small touches of beauty to the functional space, but held back. This was not her home. Carter left each morning before dawn to tend to the ranch work, returning for meals that he cooked himself with surprising competence. The food was simple but good, hearty fare meant to fuel a working man. Penelope watched him move around the kitchen with practiced ease and wondered about his life, about what it meant to live alone in this harsh landscape. On the 5th day, he rode into Fort Davis to inquire about missing women. He returned late in the afternoon, and she knew from his expression that he had learned nothing. "No one has reported anyone missing," he said, hanging his hat on the peg by the door. "I talked to the sheriff, the postmaster, even the ladies at the church. No one knows anything about a woman gone missing or any accidents nearby." Penelope sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. "So I am a ghost. You are sitting right here, solid as anything." Carter poured himself coffee and sat across from her. "Your memories might be gone, but you are real. What if they never come back? What if I never remember who I was? Then maybe you get to decide who you want to be." He met her eyes steadily. "That is more choice than most people get." She considered his words, turning them over in her mind. "And what would I do? I cannot stay here forever, living on your charity." "It is not charity, but you are right that we need to think about the future." He drummed his fingers on the table, a gesture she was coming to recognize as a sign that he was working through a problem. "Can you read and write?" "Yes," she said, then paused, surprised. "How did I know that?" "Some things stick even when memories do not." "Do you know how to cook?" She thought about it, reaching for that knowledge the same way she had reached for reading. "I think so. I am not sure." "Well, here is what I am thinking. This place could use someone to help keep it running. I am out with the cattle most days, and the house suffers for it. If you are willing, you could stay on and help out. I would pay you fair wages, and you would have a roof over your head while you figure things out." Penelope stared at him. "You would hire me? A woman you found half dead in the desert who cannot even remember her own name." "I would hire Penelope Pierce, who seems like a decent person in a tough situation." He shrugged. "Besides, like I said, I could use the help. The place is falling apart around me. I cannot keep house and run a ranch at the same time." It was more than fair. It was generous, and they both knew it. She could have been anyone, could be running from something terrible for all either of them knew. But Carter was offering her a chance, a lifeline in a world where she had nothing. "Yes," she said quietly. "Yes, I will stay, thank you." "No need for thanks. It is a business arrangement." But his smile was warm, and she felt something in her chest loosen just a little. She started her new role the next day. Carter showed her where everything was kept, the rhythms of the household, what needed doing. She discovered that her hands knew things her mind did not. She could cook, though she could not remember learning. She knew how to preserve food, how to mend clothes, how to keep a house running smoothly. These skills felt as natural as breathing, and she wondered what kind of life she must have lived to learn them so well. The first meal she cooked for Carter was simple, just fried chicken and potatoes with gravy, but she saw his eyes widen at the first bite. "This is incredible," he said, reaching for a second piece. "I have not had cooking this good since my mother passed." She felt a flush of pride at the compliment. It felt natural, like my hands remembered even if I do not. "Well, your hands are welcome to remember as much as they want if this is the result." They fell into an easy partnership. She rose early to make breakfast before he headed out to the ranch, then spent her days cleaning, mending, cooking, and tending to the garden she discovered behind the house. It had been neglected but was not beyond saving. She weeded and watered, and within days she saw new green shoots pushing up through the soil. Carter came in each evening tired and dusty, but he always took time to wash up and sit with her over dinner. They talked about the day, about the ranch, about the world beyond this little patch of Texas. He told her about Fort Davis, how it had started as a military fort back in the 40s, abandoned during the war, then reoccupied after. The town that grew up around it was a mix of soldiers, ranchers, and hopeful settlers trying to make a life in the desert. "It is a hard land," he said one evening, "but it is honest. It does not lie to you about what it is." "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Going somewhere easier?" "Where would I go? This is my home. My blood and sweat are in every inch of this land." He looked out the window at the darkening sky. "Besides, I like the challenge. Feels like you earn what you have out here." Penelope understood that, or thought she did. There was something satisfying about the physical work, about seeing the results of her labor at the end of each day. The house grew cleaner, more organized. The garden flourished. The clothes were mended, and the meals were hot. It felt good to be useful, to have a purpose. 3 weeks passed, then 4. Her bruises faded. Her strength returned fully. And slowly, without quite meaning to, she began to notice things about Carter. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. The gentle way he handled the horses. His patience when teaching her about the ranch. His quiet strength. She was falling in love with him. The realization came one evening as she watched him fix a broken chair leg, his hands sure and capable. Her heart did a strange little flip in her chest, and she knew with sudden clarity that her feelings had shifted from gratitude to something deeper and more complicated. It terrified her. She had no past, no identity beyond what she had built in the last month. How could she offer her heart to anyone when she did not even know who she was? What if her memories came back and she discovered she was married, or promised to someone, or was a terrible person who deserved to be left in that desert? But the heart does not care about logic, and hers had made its choice. She tried to ignore the feelings, to push them down and focus on her work. But they grew stronger each day, fed by small kindnesses and shared smiles and the easy companionship that had developed between them. She caught herself watching him more often, memorizing the way he moved, the sound of his laugh, the rare moments when he sang softly to himself while working. If Carter noticed her attention, he did not say anything. He remained as kind and respectful as always, treating her like a valued employee and friend. Nothing more. Summer deepened, and the heat became oppressive. The work grew harder as they fought to keep the cattle watered and the garden alive. Carter hired 2 local men, Jim and Robert, to help with the heaviest work. They were good men, respectful and hardworking, and Penelope appreciated having other people around, even if it meant more cooking and more chaos in the house. In late July, a traveling merchant came through selling goods. Carter brought him back to the ranch, and Penelope found herself picking through bolts of fabric and household goods. Carter insisted on buying her 2 new dresses, proper ones to replace the mended disaster she had been wearing. "You have earned it," he said when she protested. "Besides, I cannot have folks thinking I do not pay my employees well." She chose 2 simple but well-made dresses, one in dark blue and one in green. That night, wearing the blue dress, she caught Carter staring at her across the dinner table. Their eyes met and something passed between them, electric and unspoken. He looked away first, clearing his throat. "The dress suits you," he said quietly. "Thank you for buying it." "You are welcome." The moment stretched between them, full of things neither would say. Then Carter stood, excusing himself to check on the horses, and the spell was broken. Penelope lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of what had become her room. Carter had given her one of the other bedrooms permanently, declaring that he was comfortable enough in his small space off the kitchen. She appreciated the privacy, But tonight it felt lonely. Did he feel something too? Or was she imagining things, seeing what she wanted to see? She did not have to wonder long. A week later, as she was hanging laundry in the yard, a rider approached fast and hard. Carter came running from the barn, rifle in hand, but relaxed when he recognized the man. It was Sheriff Tom Hawkins from Fort Davis. "Carter!" the sheriff called out, dismounting. "Got some news you need to hear." Penelope's heart dropped. News. That could only mean one thing. Carter glanced at her, his expression unreadable, then turned back to the sheriff. "What is it?" "Had a man come through town yesterday asking questions. Said his wife went missing about 2 months back. Stagecoach she was on got attacked by bandits between here and El Paso. They found the coach abandoned, driver dead, no sign of the passengers." The world tilted. Penelope gripped the laundry basket so hard her knuckles went white. "He described a woman matching Miss Pierce's description," the sheriff continued. "Brown hair, green eyes, about 22 years old. Said her name was Patricia Winters. He has been searching for her ever since." Carter's jaw tightened. "Where is this man now?" "Staying at the boarding house in town. Said he would come out here today to see if it is his wife." The sheriff looked at Penelope with sympathy. "I know this must be hard, madam, but if you are his wife, you deserve to know." "Did you believe him?" Carter asked sharply. The sheriff shrugged. "He seemed genuine enough. Showed me a photograph, but it was too faded to tell much. Said they had only been married 6 months before she disappeared." Penelope found her voice, though it came out thin and strained. "What was his name?" "Winters, Richard Winters. Said he is a banker from El Paso." The name meant nothing to her. No flash of recognition, no surge of memory, just emptiness. "When will he be here?" Carter asked. "Probably within the hour. He was saddling up when I left." The sheriff shifted his weight uncomfortably. "I will stay until he arrives. Make sure everything is handled properly." Penelope set down the laundry basket with shaking hands. "I need a moment." She walked away from the men, around the side of the house where they could not see her. Her breathing came too fast, panic rising like floodwater. This was what she had wanted, was it not? Answers, her identity, a life to return to. So why did it feel like the ground was opening up beneath her feet? She heard footsteps and knew without looking that it was Carter. He stood beside her, not touching, just present. "What if it is true?" she whispered. "What if I am his wife?" "Then you will have to decide what that means to you." She turned to look at him, tears burning in her eyes. "I do not remember him. I do not remember being married. How can I be someone's wife when I do not even know who I am?" Carter's expression was torn, his eyes full of an emotion she could not quite name. "Penelope, I need to tell you something. I should have said it sooner, but I was afraid, and that was cowardly of me." "What?" "I have feelings for you, real feelings. I know the timing is terrible, and I know you might not feel the same, but if there is even a chance you are going to walk out of my life in an hour, I need you to know that these last 2 months have been the best I have had in years. You have made this house a home. You have made me happy, and I will understand if you have to go, but I could not let you leave without telling you the truth." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Carter, I feel the same way. I have been falling in love with you for weeks, and it terrifies me because I do not know if I have the right to feel this way." He reached out then, his hand cupping her cheek with infinite gentleness. "You have every right. You are alive and here and real. That matters more than whatever came before. But what if I am married? What if I have a whole life waiting for me that I cannot remember? Then we will face that when we know for sure." His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "But until then, know that I love you, Penelope Pierce. Whatever your real name is, whatever your real story might be, I love the woman you are right now." She wanted to kiss him. wanted it so badly she ached with it. But before either of them could move, they heard the sound of approaching hooves. Richard Winters had arrived. They walked back around the house together, not touching but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body beside her. A man was dismounting in the yard, watched carefully by Sheriff Hawkins. He was maybe 30, well dressed in city clothes that looked out of place in the ranch setting. His face was narrow and clean-shaven, his hair slicked back with pomade. He looked prosperous and educated and nothing like Carter. He turned as they approached, and his eyes widened. "Patricia! Oh, thank God, Patricia!" He rushed toward her, arms outstretched, but something in Penelope's body recoiled before her mind could catch up. She stepped back instinctively, and Carter moved slightly in front of her. Winters stopped, confusion crossing his face. "Patricia, it is me, Richard, your husband." "I am sorry," Penelope said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I do not remember you. The sheriff said you had lost your memory." "It is all right, darling. I will help you remember everything. We can go home, back to El Paso, and you will be fine." He smiled, but there was something off about it. Something that did not reach his eyes. "Tell us about your wife," Carter said, his voice hard. "When did you marry?" "January of this year. We met at a church social the month before." Winters looked annoyed at being questioned. "She was traveling to Fort Davis to visit her sister when the stage was attacked. I have been searching for her ever since." "I do not have a sister," Penelope said suddenly, with absolute certainty. Winters frowned. "Of course you do. Margaret, she lives in Fort Davis with her husband." "No," Penelope shook her head. "I do not know how I know, but I know. I do not have a sister. The trauma has confused you," Winters said, his tone becoming patronizing. "You are not thinking clearly. Come with me now, and we will get you proper medical care." "She has had medical care," Carter said coldly. "And her thinking seems perfectly clear to me." "Who are you?" Winters asked, really looking at Carter for the first time. "Why is my wife staying at your ranch? I found her near death in the desert and brought her here to recover. She has been working for me while trying to regain her memory." "Working?" Winters's face darkened. "You have had my wife working as a servant?" "She is not a servant. She is an employee, and a valued one." The sheriff stepped forward, his hand raised. "Gentlemen, let us all stay calm. Mr. Winters, do you have any proof that Miss Pierce here is your wife?" "I told you, I have a photograph." He pulled a worn photograph from his jacket pocket and handed it to the sheriff. Sheriff Hawkins studied it, then showed it to Penelope. The image was faded and unclear, showing a woman in a wedding dress standing next to a man in a suit. The woman had dark hair and a slender build, but the features were too blurred to make out clearly. "It could be anyone," Penelope said. "It is you," Winters insisted. "Patricia, please. I have been searching for you for 2 months. I thought you were dead. Come home with me." Penelope looked at the photograph again, then at Winters, then at Carter. Her heart told her everything she needed to know. This man was a stranger. Carter was home. "I am sorry," she said firmly, "but I do not believe I am your wife. I do not know you, and nothing about you feels familiar. If I were married to you, if I loved you, I think I would feel something. But I feel nothing." Winters's expression shifted, the veneer of the concerned husband cracking to show something uglier beneath. "You are coming with me, Patricia. You are my wife, and that is the end of it." "The lady said no," Carter said, his hand moving to his hip where his gun rested. "You have been keeping my wife here, working her like a common laborer, probably taking advantage of her condition," Winters snarled. "I could have you arrested." "On what charge?" Sheriff Hawkins asked mildly. "Mr. Garrett found an injured woman and gave her shelter. Miss Pierce has chosen to stay and work of her own free will. There is no crime in that. She is my wife. Can you prove it?" the sheriff asked. "Beyond a blurry photograph?" Winters's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Then he reached into his jacket again, and suddenly there was a small pistol in his hand. She is coming with me. Everything happened at once. Carter moved, fast as a snake's strike, his hand catching Winters's wrist and twisting. The gun fired into the dirt, and then Carter's fist connected with Winters's jaw. The man went down hard, the gun flying from his grip. Sheriff Hawkins was there in an instant, pinning Winters to the ground and pulling his arms behind his back. "That was foolish," the sheriff said, snapping handcuffs onto Winters's wrists. "Real foolish." "She is my wife," Winters shouted, struggling against the restraints. "I have rights." "You have the right to a jail cell for pulling a weapon," the sheriff said grimly. He hauled Winters to his feet and looked at Penelope. "Madam, I need to ask you straight. Do you want to go with this man?" "No," Penelope said without hesitation. "I do not know him, and I do not trust him." "That settles it, then." The sheriff started dragging Winters toward his horse. "I will hold him in Fort Davis for a few days. Do some checking on this story of his. Something about this whole thing smells wrong to me." As the sheriff loaded Winters onto his horse, still protesting loudly, Carter turned to Penelope. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though she was shaking. "Thank you for standing up for me." "Always," he said simply. They watched as the sheriff rode away with Winters in tow, the man's shouts fading into the distance. When they were finally alone, Penelope turned to Carter. "What if he was telling the truth? What if I am his wife?" "Do you feel like you are?" "No, not at all. But my feelings are not exactly reliable, are they?" Carter took her hands in his touch warm and steady. "Your feelings are the most reliable thing you have right now. That man felt wrong to you, and you trusted your instinct. That took courage." "I was so afraid," she admitted. "I know, but you stood your ground anyway. That is what courage is." He squeezed her hands gently. "Penelope, what I said before still stands. I love you, and I do not care what your name used to be or what your life was before. I care about who you are now and who you want to be moving forward." She looked up into his hazel eyes, seeing only honesty and warmth. "I want to be with you. I want to build a life here, on this ranch. I want to wake up every morning and make you breakfast and argue with you about the best way to mend a fence and watch the sunset from the porch. I want all of it if you will have me." "If I will have you?" Carter laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Penelope, I have been yours since the day you insisted on learning to ride, even though you were terrified of the horses. I am not letting you go." He kissed her then, and it felt like coming home. His lips were warm and gentle, and she melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck. The kiss was sweet and unhurried, a promise of more to come. When they finally broke apart, they were both smiling. "We should probably wait to see what the sheriff finds out," Penelope said practically, though she did not let go of him. "Probably," Carter agreed. "But I have a feeling Mr. Winters is not going to turn out to be what he claims." Carter was right. Sheriff Hawkins returned 3 days later with news. Richard Winters was not a banker from El Paso. He was a con man with a history of targeting vulnerable women, marrying them quickly, and then stealing their money or property before disappearing. There had never been a stagecoach attack. The photograph was one he carried around, looking for women who could plausibly match the faded image. "He saw an opportunity when he heard about a woman with no memory," the sheriff explained. "Figured he could claim you as his wife and take whatever you had. Lucky for you, you had nothing to take except yourself, and you were too smart to fall for his story." "What will happen to him?" Penelope asked. "He is wanted in 3 territories. I will be transferring him to the federal marshal in El Paso. He will face trial for his crimes." The sheriff tipped his hat to her. "You are free and clear, Miss Pierce. No husband, no complications. You are your own woman." After the sheriff left, Penelope stood in the yard, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She was free, Whatever her past had been, it no longer mattered. She could choose her own future now. Carter found her there, watching the sun set over the mountains. "So what now?" he asked. "Now I live," she said simply. "I stay here with you and we build something real together." Just like that. Just like that. She turned to face him, her expression serious. "Unless you have changed your mind." He pulled her close, his arms strong around her. "Not a chance. You are stuck with me now, Penelope Pierce." They were married in September, a simple ceremony in Fort Davis with the sheriff and Doc Miller as witnesses. Penelope wore a new dress, this one white with lace at the collar, and carried wildflowers from the ranch. Carter wore his best suit, his hair neatly trimmed for the occasion. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Carter kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. The ranch became truly theirs then, a shared endeavor built on love and hard work. Penelope discovered she had a head for numbers and took over the books, finding ways to save money and improve their profit margins. Carter expanded the herd, and together they hired more help and built the ranch into something prosperous. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the stars come out, talking about everything and nothing. Carter told her stories about growing up in Texas, about his parents and their struggles and triumphs. Penelope listened and shared what she could, even if her own history was more about the present than the past. "Do you ever wonder about who you were before?" Carter asked one night. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but less and less as time goes on. Whoever I was, she led me here, to you. And I cannot regret that." "I wonder if you were happy. In your old life, I mean?" Penelope considered this. "I do not think I was. I think if I had been truly happy, I would remember it. Happiness like this leaves a mark." Carter kissed her temple. "You are happy now. Deliriously so." Their first year of marriage was not without challenges. The winter was harsh, and they lost some cattle to the cold. A drought the following spring made water scarce, and they had to make hard decisions about the herd. But they faced everything together, and their love only grew stronger through the difficulties. In the summer of 1886, Penelope realized she was pregnant. She told Carter one evening after dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. He went very still, his eyes wide. "A baby," he said finally. "Yes. Are you happy?" He let out a whoop of joy that probably carried all the way to Fort Davis and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop. "Happy? Penelope, I am the happiest man alive." The pregnancy was easy, and Penelope bloomed with health. Carter became impossibly protective, trying to prevent her from doing any heavy work. She tolerated this for about a week before sitting him down and explaining firmly that she was pregnant, not made of glass, and that she would continue doing her work until she physically could not. "I am growing a human being inside me," she said. "I think I can handle collecting eggs from the chickens." He relented, but he watched her like a hawk, ready to swoop in at the first sign of trouble. Their son was born in February of 1887. A healthy baby with Carter's dark hair and what would eventually become his father's hazel eyes. They named him William, after Carter's father, and called him Will for short. Carter held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face, and Penelope knew she had never loved him more than in that moment. Will grew into a sturdy, curious toddler who loved the horses and followed his father everywhere. When he was 2, Penelope discovered she was pregnant again. This time it was a girl, born in the spring of 1889. They named her Sarah, and she had her mother's green eyes and a temperament that would prove to be pure steel wrapped in silk. The ranch continued to prosper. They built a new barn, added a proper dining room to the house, and hired a full-time crew of ranch hands. Penelope's garden expanded to include fruit trees and a larger vegetable patch. She learned to preserve everything they grew, and her pantry became legendary in Fort Davis. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm of seasons and celebrations, of hard work and harder-won rewards. Will grew tall and strong, learning the ranch from his father. Sarah proved to have a gift with animals, able to gentle even the most skittish horse. They were happy, all four of them, in a way that felt earned and real. When Will was 8 and Sarah was 6, something unexpected happened. Penelope was in Fort Davis buying supplies when a woman approached her outside the general store. The woman was perhaps 50, with graying hair and kind eyes. "Excuse me," the woman said hesitantly. "I am sorry to bother you, but you look so much like someone I used to know. May I ask your name?" "Penelope Garrett," Penelope said, though something in her chest tightened. The woman's face fell. "Oh, I am sorry. I thought perhaps you were someone else. You see, I had a daughter who disappeared years ago. She would be about your age now. The resemblance is quite striking." Penelope's heart began to race. "What was your daughter's name?" "Prudence. Prudence Palmer. She ran away when she was 18, after her father tried to force her to marry a man she did not love. We have not seen her since." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I have never stopped looking for her." Prudence Palmer. The name struck something deep inside Penelope, like a bell ringing in a forgotten room. Not a memory exactly, but a recognition, a sense of rightness. "Where did you live?" Penelope asked quietly. "New Orleans. My husband is a shipping merchant. Prudence was our only child." The woman studied Penelope's face more closely. "You truly do not know me, do you? I am sorry. I did not mean to upset you. I will leave you alone." "Wait." Penelope reached out, touching the woman's arm. "Tell me about Prudence. What was she like?" The woman smiled through her tears. "She was spirited and kind. She loved to read and could cook the most amazing meals. She had a beautiful singing voice, and she was stubborn, so stubborn. Once she set her mind to something, there was no changing it. Each detail landed like a key in a lock." Penelope felt dizzy. "She had a small birthmark on her left shoulder," the woman continued, "shaped like a crescent moon." Penelope knew, without looking, that she had the same mark. She had seen it countless times in the mirror, never thinking anything of it. Her hand moved unconsciously to her left shoulder. "You have it," the woman whispered, her voice breaking. "You have the mark. Prudence?" "I do not remember," Penelope said, tears streaming down her own face now. "I lost my memory 7 years ago. I have been Penelope Garrett all this time, but I think I might have been Prudence Palmer once." They stood there in the middle of Fort Davis, two women crying and holding each other, while curious townspeople watched. Finally, Penelope pulled back. "I have a family now, a husband and 2 children, a life here in Fort Davis." "I understand," the woman said, though fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I just needed to know you were alive and safe. That is all a mother can ask." "What was my father going to make me marry?" Penelope asked. The woman's face hardened. "A business associate of his, a cruel man much older than you. You begged us not to make you do it, but your father would not listen. He cared more about the business arrangement than your happiness. We had a terrible fight and you left in the night. By the time we realized what had happened, you were gone." "I am sorry," Penelope said. "I am sorry I hurt you by leaving. You did what you had to do, and it seems you found happiness anyway, even if not in the way any of us expected." The woman took Penelope's hands in hers. "Tell me about your life, please. I want to know that my daughter is truly all right." So Penelope told her about Carter finding her in the desert, about building a life from nothing, about the ranch and her children, and the love that filled her days. She watched the woman's face transform from grief to something like peace. "He sounds like a good man, your husband," the woman said when Penelope was done. "He is the best man I have ever known," Penelope said simply. "Then I am glad you found him, even if it meant losing everything else." The woman squeezed Penelope's hands. "May I meet my grandchildren?" Penelope's breath caught. Yes, yes, of course. Let me get Carter. He is at the feed store. She found Carter and brought him back, explaining quickly what had happened. To his credit, he took it in stride, wrapping an arm around her waist and greeting the woman who might be her mother with courtesy and warmth. Madam, if Penelope wants you in our lives, then you are welcome. But I need you to understand something. My wife has built a good life here. If your husband is going to cause problems, if he is going to try to drag her back to New Orleans or force her into that marriage, then you are not welcome. Her safety and happiness come first. My husband died 2 years ago, the woman said quietly, and I would never do anything to hurt my daughter again. I just want to know her and to know my grandchildren. Then come to the ranch for dinner, Penelope said, making the decision in her heart before her mind could catch up. Meet Will and Sarah. See what I have built. The woman came to the ranch the next day, driving a rented buggy. Will and Sarah were curious but polite, watching this stranger who claimed to be their grandmother. But Sarah, with her gift for reading people, climbed into the woman's lap within an hour and declared that she liked her. Over dinner, which Penelope made with special care, the woman told stories about Prudence as a child. Penelope listened with fascination, hearing about a girl who felt both familiar and foreign. She saw Carter watching her carefully, as if afraid she might suddenly decide to become someone else. After the children were in bed, the three adults sat on the porch with coffee. I have a question, the woman said. Do you want to be called Prudence again? Would you like to reclaim your old name? Penelope thought about it carefully. No, she said, finally. Prudence might be who I was, but Penelope is who I am. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. The woman smiled. Then I will call you Penelope, and love you just the same. But may I ask one thing? Anything. Will you let me be part of your life? I have missed so many years. I know I have no right to ask, but I would like to know my grandchildren, and to be your mother again if you will have me. Penelope looked at Carter, who nodded slightly. Then she looked back at the woman who had given birth to her, who had searched for her, who had never given up. What is your first name? Penelope asked. I feel strange calling you mother when I do not remember you. Josephine, but everyone calls me Josie. All right, Josie, you can be part of our lives, but I need you to understand that this is my home now. These are my people. I will not go back to New Orleans or to the life I left behind. I would not ask you to. Josie reached across and squeezed Penelope's hand. I am just grateful to have found you at all. Josie stayed in Fort Davis for a month, renting a room at the boarding house but spending most of her time at the ranch. She taught Penelope some of the recipes she had made as a child, and Penelope felt strange flickers of recognition as her hands remembered movements her mind did not. Josie told her stories, trying to fill in the blank spaces, but Penelope found she did not want to remember too badly. The past was the past. What mattered was the present. When Josie finally left to return to New Orleans, she made Penelope promise to write and to send photographs of the children. Penelope agreed, and they embraced at the stagecoach, both crying. I am proud of you, Josie whispered. Proud of the life you have built and the woman you have become. Prudence was my daughter, but Penelope is a force all her own. After she left, Carter found Penelope in the garden, sitting on the bench he had built for her years ago. How are you feeling? He asked, sitting beside her. Strange. Like I found a piece of myself I did not know was missing, but also like it does not quite fit anymore. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Does that make sense? Complete sense. He kissed the top of her head. You are not the same person who ran away from New Orleans. You have grown and changed. Finding out where you came from does not change who you are now. I love you, she said fiercely, in case I have not said it enough. You say it every day in 100 different ways. He pulled her closer. And I love you right back. The years continued to roll past, each one bringing new challenges and joys. Will grew into a fine young man, taking on more responsibility at the ranch. Sarah developed into a skilled horsewoman and took over training the new horses they acquired. They added a third child to the family in 1892, another boy they named Thomas. And then, in 1895, a fourth and final child, a girl they named Caroline. The ranch became one of the most successful in the region, known for quality cattle and well-trained horses. Carter and Penelope were respected members of the Fort Davis community, hosting barn dances and Fourth of July celebrations. They weathered droughts and economic downturns always together, always finding a way through. Josie visited once a year, usually in the spring. She adored her grandchildren, and they adored her right back. She brought gifts and stories, and slowly, over years, Penelope found that she did not feel strange calling her mother anymore. The memories never fully returned, but she built new ones, and that was enough. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1911, Carter surprised Penelope with a new addition to the house, a sunroom she had always wanted. They stood in it together, looking out at the land they had built their life on. "Do you ever regret it?" Carter asked. "Staying here with me instead of trying harder to recover your memories?" "Never," Penelope said without hesitation. "I could not have asked for a better life. You gave me everything that matters." "You gave me everything," Carter corrected. "Before you, this ranch was just a job. You made it a home. You made me happy." "We made each other happy," she said, kissing him softly. "That is the best any of us can hope for." Their children grew and married, bringing grandchildren into their lives. Will took over the running of the ranch eventually, with Sarah managing the horse training operation. Thomas moved to San Antonio and became a teacher while Caroline married a doctor and settled in El Paso. But they all came home for holidays and special occasions, filling the house with laughter and love. Carter and Penelope grew old together, their hair turning gray, their hands becoming gnarled with arthritis, but their love remaining as strong as ever. They still sat on the porch every evening, watching the sunset and talking about the day. They still held hands like newlyweds. They still looked at each other like they were the most important person in the world. In the spring of 1935, on a particularly beautiful morning, Penelope woke to find Carter had passed peacefully in his sleep. He was 75 years old, and they had been married for 46 years. The grief was crushing, a physical weight on her chest. But mixed with the sorrow was gratitude. She had been given a gift all those years ago in the desert. She had been given a second chance at life, and she had spent it loving and being loved by the best man she had ever known. At the funeral, attended by what seemed like half of West Texas, their children spoke about their parents' love story, about how their father had found their mother with no memory and helped her build a new life, about how that act of kindness had grown into a love that lasted nearly half a century, about how they had built not just a successful ranch, but a family legacy of kindness and hard work and devotion. Penelope stood by the grave, her children and grandchildren surrounding her, and felt at peace. She had lived a good life. She had loved and been loved. She had made a difference in the world, even if it was just in this small corner of Texas. She lived another 5 years, staying on at the ranch under Will's care. She spent her days with her grandchildren, teaching them to cook and telling them stories about their grandfather. She wrote long letters to Carolyn in El Paso and Thomas in San Antonio. She tended her garden and read books in the sunroom Carter had built for her. When she passed in her sleep in 1940, at the age of 77, she died as Penelope Garrett, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. The woman who had been Prudence Palmer was long gone, lost in a desert 55 years before. But Penelope had lived fully and joyfully, never regretting the blank slate that had given her the freedom to choose her own path. They buried her next to Carter under the wide Texas sky. Her headstone read simply, Penelope Garrett, beloved wife and mother, 1863-1940. She chose love. The ranch stayed in the family for generations, passed down from parents to children, each one adding their own touch but maintaining the legacy that Carter and Penelope had built. The story of how they met became family legend, told and retold at gatherings. The story of a woman found in the desert with no memory, and the cowboy who helped her build a new life instead. The story of a love that transcended the past and built a future worth living. And in the end, that was all anyone could ask for. Not a life remembered, but a life well lived. Not a past recovered, but a present cherished. Not memories of what was, but the creation of something new and beautiful and real. Penelope had been given the rarest of gifts, the chance to choose who she wanted to be. And she had chosen love, partnership, family, and a life of purpose. She had chosen Carter, and he had chosen her right back. And together, they had built something that would last long after they were gone. In the archives of Fort Davis, there is still a photograph from 1911 taken on their 25th anniversary. Carter and Penelope stand in front of their ranch house, surrounded by their 4 children and numerous grandchildren. Carter's arm is around Penelope's waist, and she is leaning into him, both of them smiling. They look tired, weathered by years of hard work and hard living, but also happy, deeply, genuinely happy. And if you look closely at Penelope's face in that photograph, you can see no shadow of the lost woman who woke in the desert all those years ago. You see only a woman who found her place in the world, who built a life with her own 2 hands and the help of a good man who loved her. You see a woman who had everything that mattered. Years later, one of their great-great-grandchildren would find that photograph in an old album and ask about the story behind it. And sitting on the porch of that same ranch house, now over a century old but still standing strong, their descendant would tell the tale. About the woman with no memory and the cowboy who helped her build a new life instead. About how sometimes the greatest gift is not knowing who you were, but having the freedom to decide who you want to be. And the story would live on, passed down through generations, a testament to the power of kindness, the strength of love, and the courage it takes to start over with nothing but hope and determination. It was a love story for the ages, set against the harsh beauty of the West Texas desert, proving that sometimes the best life is the one you choose for yourself, and the best love is the one you build together, one day at a time.